The Vanished Nordic Time Gate. Content Introduction. In the quiet and enchanting landscapes of the Nordic region, where snow-capped mountains meet vast fjords and ancient forests, a mysterious tale unfolds. Our protagonist, a young and curious explorer named Aria, stumbles upon rumors of a long-lost time gate. This gate, said to be hidden deep within the heart of an ancient Nordic forest, was rumored to have the power to traverse through time, a secret kept by the old Nordic tribes. Aria, driven by her insatiable thirst for knowledge and adventure, sets out on a journey. Along the way, she meets a wise old hermit named Bjorn, who shares his fragmented knowledge of the time gate. As Aria delves deeper into the forest, she discovers strange markings on ancient trees, remnants of the past that seem to guide her towards the gate. The story follows Aria's gentle exploration, filled with encounters with friendly forest creatures, peaceful glades, and the soft whispers of the wind through the trees. As she gets closer to uncovering the truth about the vanished Nordic time gate, the narrative unfolds in a slow-paced, soothing manner, lulling the reader into a state of relaxation, much like a gentle Nordic lullaby. It's a story that combines the allure of mystery with the tranquility of the Nordic wilderness, perfect for those seeking a peaceful escape into a world of magic and wonder before drifting off to sleep. Chapter 1: The Whisper of the Gate. Aria sat at the rustic wooden table of the small Nordic tavern, the warm glow of the fireplace casting a soft light over the room. The air was thick with the smell of burning wood and the rich, earthy aroma of mead. The tavern was filled with the low murmur of voices, a blend of local dialects and the occasional foreign tongue. Aria had been traveling through the Nordic lands for weeks, her heart set on uncovering the region's hidden mysteries. Today, her ears perked up at the mention of a strange legend by a group of local fishermen huddled in the corner. Deep in the old forest, one of them said in a hushed tone, his voice carrying a hint of both fear and reverence, "There lies a gate. A gate that can take you back in time, to the days when the gods walked the earth and the world was a different place." Aria's eyes sparkled with curiosity. She had always been drawn to the idea of time, travel, the thought of exploring eras long past like an open book. The notion of a time gate hidden in the heart of the Nordic forest was too captivating to ignore. After finishing her drink, she rose from her seat and approached the fisherman. "Can you tell me more about this gate?" she asked, her voice filled with eagerness, a soft undertone of excitement betraying her otherwise composed demeanor. The fisherman looked at her, a mix of caution and mild amusement in their eyes. "It's just an old tale, miss," one of them replied, his weather-beaten face creasing into a gentle smile. "But if you're set on finding it, you might want to talk to Bjorn. He's an old hermit who lives on the outskirts of the forest. He knows more about the old stories than anyone around here. Spends his days poring over ancient tomes and talking to the spirits of the land, so they say. Aria thanked the fisherman profusely and set off early the next morning. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon, casting a golden, pink glow over the snow-covered landscape. The world was bathed in a soft, ethereal light, as if the very earth was waking up from a long slumber. As she walked, the crunch of snow under her boots was the only sound, a rhythmic accompaniment to the gentle rustling of the wind through the trees. After a few hours of walking, following the rough directions given by the fisherman, she reached the small cottage where Bjorn was said to live. The cottage was nestled among tall pine trees, almost hidden from view. It was a simple structure, made of rough, hewn logs, with a thatched roof that seemed to blend in with the surrounding forest. A thin wisp of smoke curled up from the chimney, indicating that someone was home. Aria knocked on the door, her heart pounding slightly with anticipation. After a moment, the door creaked open, revealing an old man with a long, white beard that reached down to his chest. His kind blue eyes twinkled with wisdom as he looked at Aria. "Hello, young lady," Bjorn said in a warm, gravelly voice. "What brings you to my humble abode on this fine morning?" Aria introduced herself and told him about the time gate, her words tumbling out in a rush. Bjorn's expression grew serious at the mention of the gate. "Ah, the time gate," he said, motioning for her to come inside. "It's a dangerous and powerful thing, if it truly exists. But I can tell you what I know. Come in, and warm yourself by the fire." Inside the cottage, it was warm and cozy. A fire crackled merrily in the hearth, casting a warm glow over the room. The walls were lined with shelves filled with old books, some with leather bindings that were cracked and worn with age. Strange trinkets and artifacts were scattered about, each one seemingly holding a story of its own. Bjorn sat down in a worn-out armchair by the fire and motioned for Aria to take a seat on a small wooden stool opposite him. "I've heard stories from my elders," Bjorn began, his eyes gazing into the distance as if seeing the past unfold before him. "They said that the time gate was built by the ancient Nordic tribes as a way to communicate with their ancestors. It was a sacred place, a bridge between the living and the dead, between different eras of time. But over time, as the world changed and the old ways were forgotten, the gate was lost, hidden away by the forest as if it were a secret too powerful to be found." Aria listened intently, hanging on to every word. "Do you know where I can find it?" she asked, her eyes wide with hope. Bjorn shook his head slowly. "I don't know the exact location, but I've heard that there are markings on the trees deep in the forest." These markings are said to be a guide to the gate. They were left by the ancient ones, a breadcrumb trail for those who were worthy to find the gate. But be careful, the forest is full of its own magic and secrets. There are creatures that dwell in the shadows, and the very trees themselves seem to have a life of their own. Aria thanked Bjorn for his help, her mind already racing with thoughts of the journey ahead. She decided to set off into the forest immediately. As she stepped back outside, the sunlight filtering through the trees created a dappled pattern on the snow. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the crisp, cold air, and started her journey into the unknown. The forest was quiet and peaceful. Aria walked along a small, winding path, her eyes scanning the trees for any signs of the markings. Every now and then, she would spot a small squirrel scurrying up a tree, its bushy tail disappearing into the branches. Birds chirped merrily, their songs echoing through the forest, adding to the symphony of nature. The sounds of the forest were like a gentle lullaby, lulling her into a state of calm. After a while, she noticed something strange. On the trunk of a large oak tree, there was a series of strange symbols carved into the bark. The symbols were deep and intricate, as if they had been etched with great care. Could these be the markings Bjorn had told her about? Aria leaned in closer, examining the symbols. They seemed to form some kind of pattern, but she couldn't make out their meaning. They were like a language from another time, a code waiting to be deciphered. As she continued on her journey, the forest seemed to grow darker. The trees became taller and more closely packed together, their branches intertwining above her head, creating a canopy that blocked out much of the sunlight. But Aria wasn't afraid. The sense of adventure and the hope of finding the time gate kept her going. She felt a strange connection to the forest, as if it was guiding her towards her destination. As the day wore on, Aria found more markings on other trees. Some were on the trunks, others on the large boulders that were scattered throughout the forest. The symbols were always different, yet there was a certain rhythm to them, a pattern that she was slowly starting to piece together. She took out a small notebook and a piece of charcoal from her pack and started to copy the symbols down, hoping that she could figure out their meaning later. Finally, as the sun started to set, casting a warm orange glow over the forest, Aria decided to make camp. She found a small clearing surrounded by thick bushes, providing some protection from the wind. She set up her tent with practiced ease, using the skills she had learned during her travels. After pitching the tent, she gathered some dry branches and leaves and started a small campfire. As she sat by the campfire, the warmth spreading through her body, she thought about the symbols on the tree and what they could mean. She took out her notebook and studied the sketches she had made. There were circles, triangles, and strange lines that seemed to connect the different shapes. It was like a puzzle, and she was determined to solve it. Slowly, the warmth of the fire and the peacefulness of the forest lulled her to sleep. Her eyes grew heavy, and she lay down in her tent, her mind filled with dreams of the mysterious time gate. In her dreams, she saw herself walking through the gate, surrounded by a bright, white light. The past and the present seemed to merge, and she could hear the whispers of the ancient Nordic tribes, calling her towards something great. And with that, Aria drifted off into a deep, peaceful sleep, ready to continue her adventure in the morning. As the night deepened, the forest around her seemed to come alive with soft sounds. The wind whistled through the trees, creating a gentle melody. Owls hooted in the distance, their calls echoing through the darkness. But Aria slept soundly, unaware of the nocturnal activities around her. She was in a world of her own, a world filled with magic and mystery, a world where the search for the time gate was just beginning. The next morning, Aria woke up to the sound of birdsong. The sun was shining brightly through the small opening of her tent. She stretched and yawned, feeling refreshed and ready to continue her journey. After packing up her camp, she took one last look around the clearing. It was as if the forest had kept her safe during the night, as if it was a silent guardian watching over her. She followed the path again, her eyes once more scanning the trees for the markings. As she walked, she couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. She was getting closer to something, she could feel it. The markings seemed to be leading her in a more definite direction now, and she quickened her pace. After a few hours of walking, she came across a small stream. The water was clear and cold, trickling over the rocks. Aria knelt down by the stream and took a drink. As she did, she noticed that there were more markings on a large rock by the side of the stream. These markings were different from the ones she had seen before. They were more elaborate, with what looked like a map etched into the surface of the rock. Aria studied the map intently. It seemed to show a path deeper into the forest, towards a large, circular area. Could this be the location of the time gate? Her heart skipped a beat at the thought. She followed the directions indicated on the map, her excitement growing with every step. The forest around her seemed to change as she got closer to the circular area. The trees were older, their trunks wider, and there was a sense of stillness in the air. It was as if the very forest was holding its breath, waiting for her to discover its secret. Finally, she reached the circular area. It was a large clearing, surrounded by ancient trees. In the center of the clearing, there was a large, flat stone. Aria approached the stone cautiously. As she got closer, she noticed that there were more symbols carved into the stone. These symbols were glowing faintly, as if they were alive with magic. Aria bent down to examine the symbols. She had no idea what they meant, but she could feel the power emanating from the stone. It was a strange, otherworldly feeling, as if she was on the verge of uncovering something truly remarkable. As she studied the symbols, she heard a soft whisper in the wind. It was a voice that seemed to be calling her name. Aria. The voice whispered. You have come a long way. But the journey has just begun. Aria looked around, but there was no one in sight. The voice seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. She stood up, her heart pounding. Who's there? She called out. But there was no answer. The only sound was the gentle rustling of the leaves in the wind. Aria knew that she was in a strange and magical place. She decided to stay in the clearing for a while, to see if anything else would happen. She sat down on the large stone, her mind racing with thoughts. What did the symbols mean? Who was the voice that had called her name? And most importantly, was this the time gate? As the hours passed, Aria continued to study the symbols. She tried to make sense of them, but they remained a mystery. The sun started to set again, casting a warm glow over the clearing. Aria decided to make camp in the clearing. She set up her tent next to the large stone, feeling a strange sense of comfort in its presence. As she sat by the campfire that night, she couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. She knew that she was on the verge of something big. The time gate, if it truly existed, was within her reach. And with that thought, she drifted off to sleep, her dreams filled with the mystery of the symbols and the promise of what lay ahead. Chapter 2: Unraveling the Mysteries. Aria woke to the soft light of dawn filtering through the trees. The forest was bathed in a pale, silver, blue glow, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of pine. She sat up in her tent, her mind immediately returning to the symbols on the stone. Last night, sleep had been filled with fragmented dreams of ancient languages and mysterious voices, and she was more determined than ever to unravel their meaning. Stepping out of the tent, she made her way to the large stone in the center of the clearing. The symbols, which had glowed faintly last night, now seemed to be more subdued in the morning light. She knelt down, running her fingers over the carvings, as if trying to absorb their secrets through touch. As she studied the symbols, she noticed something new. There were small indentations in the stone, arranged in a pattern that seemed to match the symbols. It was as if the stone was some kind of lock, and she needed to find the right key to turn. But what could the key be? Aria spent the next few hours carefully examining the clearing and the surrounding trees. She was looking for anything that could be related to the indentations on the stone. She found more markings on the trees, but they seemed to be more of a continuation of the story rather than the key she was seeking. Suddenly, she heard a soft rustling in the bushes. Her heart skipped a beat, and she turned around, half expecting to see some kind of forest creature. Instead, a small, white-haired fox emerged from the underbrush. Its eyes were a bright, intelligent blue, and it regarded Aria with an almost human-like curiosity. Aria stared at the fox, a sense of wonder washing over her. The fox took a few steps forward, then sat down, its tail curled neatly around its paws. "You're a long way from home, Aria," the fox said, its voice soft and melodious. Aria was stunned. She had never heard an animal speak before. How do you know my name?" she stammered. The fox tilted its head to one side. "I know many things. I've been watching you since you entered the forest. You seek the Time Gate, do you not?" Aria nodded. "Yes, I do. But I can't seem to figure out how to unlock it. These symbols on the stone, I don't understand them." The fox stood up and walked over to the stone. It sniffed at the symbols, then looked back at Aria. "These symbols are a language of the ancient Nordic tribes. They tell the story of the Time Gate, its creation, and its purpose. But to unlock the gate, you need something more. You need a token, a special object that was left behind by the ones who built the gate." Aria's heart sank. "But I don't know where to find such a token. Do you know?" The fox sat down again. "I do. There is a cave not far from here. In that cave, there is a small chamber. Inside the chamber, you will find a crystal. This crystal is the key you seek. But be careful. The cave is not without its dangers." Aria thanked the fox. "I'll be careful. But why are you helping me?" The fox looked at her with its wise eyes. "Because the Time Gate is a powerful thing. It should be used for good, and I see the goodness in you. I believe you can use its power to bring balance and knowledge to the world." With that, the fox disappeared into the bushes. Aria wasted no time. She packed her things and set off in the direction the fox had indicated. The forest seemed to be guiding her, as if the very trees were showing her the way. After a while, she came across a large boulder. Behind the boulder was a small opening, the entrance to the cave. Aria took a deep breath and stepped inside. The cave was dark, and she could hear the sound of water dripping in the distance. She took out a small torch from her pack and lit it, the warm glow illuminating the narrow passageway. As she walked deeper into the cave, she noticed that the walls were covered in strange markings. These markings were different from the ones on the trees and the stone in the clearing. They seemed to be some kind of warning. Aria couldn't make out the exact words, but the feeling of unease in her stomach told her to be cautious. Suddenly, she heard a low growl. Ahead of her, in the dim light, she could see a pair of glowing eyes. It was some kind of large, beast-like creature. Aria froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that running would be useless. The creature was blocking her way forward. Slowly, she reached for the dagger at her belt. The creature took a step towards her, its growl getting louder. Aria could now make out its shape. It was a large, wolf-like beast, but with strange, glowing markings on its fur. "Who are you, and what do you want?" Aria called out, trying to sound more confident than she felt. The beast stared at her for a moment, then spoke. "I am the guardian of this place. Few come here, and those who do are usually not welcome." Aria swallowed hard. "I'm looking for a crystal. A fox told me it was here. I need it to unlock the time gate. I mean no harm." The beast regarded her for a long time. "The time gate is a powerful and dangerous thing. Why do you seek it?" Aria thought for a moment. "I want to use it to learn about the past, to bring knowledge and understanding to the world. I believe it can be used for good." The beast seemed to consider her words. "Very well. I will let you pass. But be warned, if you use the time gate for evil, I will find you, no matter where you are in time." With that, the beast stepped aside. Aria walked past it, her body tense, ready for any sudden attack. But the beast remained still, watching her as she continued on her way. After a few more twists and turns in the cave, she came to a small chamber. In the center of the chamber, on a small pedestal, was a crystal. The crystal was clear, but it seemed to be filled with a swirling, rainbow-colored light. Aria approached the crystal cautiously. As she reached out to take it, a wave of energy coursed through her body. She held the crystal in her hand, feeling its power. It was warm to the touch, and she could sense that this was indeed the key to the time gate. With the crystal in hand, she made her way back out of the cave. The beast was still there, but it didn't stop her as she passed. Back in the clearing, Aria made her way to the large stone. She placed the crystal in one of the indentations on the stone. As soon as the crystal touched the stone, the symbols on the stone began to glow brightly. The crystal seemed to be activating the lock. Aria stepped back, watching in awe as the stone began to tremble. Slowly, A large, circular portal began to form in the center of the clearing. The portal was filled with a swirling, multicolored light, and she could feel a strange energy coming from it. She knew that this was the time gate. But now that it was in front of her, she felt a moment of hesitation. What would she find on the other side? Would she be able to control the power of the time gate? As she stood there, thinking, she heard the voice from last night again. Aria, this is your chance. Step through the gate, and unlock the secrets of time. Taking a deep breath, Aria stepped towards the time gate. The swirling light seemed to pull her in, and in a flash, she was surrounded by a bright, blinding light. When the light finally subsided, she found herself in a different place. She was in a large, ancient hall. The walls were made of a smooth, white stone, and there were torches burning brightly on the walls. Ahead of her, there were rows of pillars, and at the end of the hall, there was a large, throne-like chair. As she walked down the hall, she noticed that there were figures carved into the pillars. These figures seemed to be telling a story of the creation of the time gate. She could see the ancient Nordic tribes, their faces filled with determination as they built the gate. Suddenly, she heard a noise behind her. She turned around, but there was nothing there. The feeling of being watched was overwhelming. She continued walking towards the end of the hall, her hand on the dagger at her belt. When she reached the throne-like chair, she noticed that there was a figure sitting in it. The figure was wearing a long, white robe, and its face was hidden in the shadows. "Welcome, Aria," the figure said. "You have come a long way to reach this place." Aria stared at the figure. "Who are you?" she asked. The figure stood up and stepped forward. As it did, the light from the torches revealed its face. It was an old man, with a kind, wrinkled face, and long, white hair. "I am one of the guardians of the time gate. I have been waiting for someone like you to come, someone with a pure heart and a strong will." Aria was confused. "What do you mean, someone like me?" The old man smiled. "The time gate is not just a portal through time. It is a tool that can be used to change the course of history. But it must be used with great care. There are those who would use it for evil, to gain power and control. You, Aria, have the potential to use it for good, to bring balance and harmony to the world." Aria listened intently. "But how do I use it? And what exactly can I do with it?" The old man sat down on the chair again. "The time gate can take you to different eras of the past. You can learn from the wisdom of the ancients, see the mistakes that were made, and perhaps prevent them from happening again. But remember, every action in the past has consequences in the present. You must be careful what you do." Aria nodded. "I understand. But where should I start?" The old man pointed to a large, circular platform next to the chair. "Step on that platform. It will show you the different eras you can travel to. Choose one, and the time gate will take you there." Aria walked over to the platform. As she stepped on it, a series of images appeared in the air above her. She saw different scenes from different times: a battle between ancient warriors, a peaceful village in a time of plenty, and a great city filled with magic and wonder. She studied the images, trying to decide which era to visit. After a while, she pointed to an image of a time when the Nordic tribes were facing a great drought. The people were suffering, and the land was parched. "I want to go there," Aria said. "I want to see if I can help them." The old man nodded. "Very well. The time gate will take you to that era. But be careful, Aria. The past is a delicate place, and one wrong move can change everything." With that, the old man waved his hand, and the time gate behind Aria began to swirl with light. Aria took a deep breath and stepped through the gate, ready to face the challenges of the past. As she stepped through the gate, she felt a strange sensation, as if she was being pulled and pushed at the same time. When she opened her eyes, she was in a different place. She was in the middle of a dry, dusty plain. In the distance, she could see a village, its houses made of mud and straw. The people were gathered in the village square, looking desperate. Aria knew that she had a lot of work to do. She made her way towards the village, her mind already racing with ideas on how she could help the people. As she walked, she could feel the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She was in the past, and she had the power to change things. But would she be able to do it without causing more harm than good? Only time would tell. The villagers looked at her with a mix of curiosity and suspicion as she entered the village. Aria knew that she needed to win their trust. She approached an old woman who was sitting on the steps of a house. "Hello," she said. "I'm Aria. I'm here to help." The old woman looked at her. "Help? How can you help? We've been praying for rain, but the gods seem to have abandoned us." Aria smiled. "I have an idea. But I need your help. Do you have any wells in the village?" The old woman nodded. "Yes, but they're almost dry." Aria thought for a moment. "I think I can find a way to bring water to the wells. But I need some of the villagers to help me dig." The old woman called out to the other villagers. Slowly, they gathered around Aria. She explained her plan to them. She believed that if they dug deeper into the wells, they might find an underground water source. The villagers were skeptical, but they were also desperate. They decided to give her plan a try. Aria and the villagers spent the next few hours digging. It was hard work, but everyone was determined. As they dug deeper, Aria could feel a change in the air. The ground seemed to be getting moister. Suddenly, one of the villagers shouted, "I think I feel water." Everyone stopped digging and looked down. Sure enough, there was a small trickle of water seeping into the well. The villagers cheered. Aria knew that this was just the beginning. She continued to work with the villagers, helping them to widen the well and make it deeper. As the day wore on, the trickle of water turned into a steady stream. The villagers were overjoyed. They had water again. Aria had made a difference. But she knew that this was just one small step. There were many more challenges ahead, and she needed to be careful. She was in the past, and every action she took could have far-reaching consequences. But for now, she was happy to see the smiles on the villagers' faces as they filled their buckets with water. Chapter 3: The Ripples of Time. Aria's success in bringing water to the drought-stricken village was met with great celebration. The villagers, who had once looked at her with suspicion, now regarded her as a savior. They prepared a grand feast in her honor, with whatever meager supplies they had managed to gather. Aria sat among them, sharing in their joy, but her mind was already racing with thoughts of the time gate and the potential consequences of her actions. As the night fell, the villagers gathered around the campfire, their faces illuminated by the warm glow. They began to tell stories of their ancestors, of the great deeds and the wisdom passed down through the generations. Aria listened intently, realizing that these stories held the key to understanding the past and perhaps guiding her future actions. One of the elders, a man with a long, gray beard and a kind but weather-beaten face, stood up. "Aria," he said, his voice carrying the weight of years. "You have brought hope to our village in our darkest hour. But we must also be cautious. The gods have a way of balancing things, and we must ensure that our new-found fortune does not bring about unforeseen troubles." Aria nodded, understanding the elder's concern. "I will do everything in my power to make sure that this is a lasting solution. But I also need to know more about this place, about the events that led to the drought." The elder sat down again, his eyes lost in thought. "The drought came upon us suddenly. Some say it was the anger of the gods, others believe it was a sign of a greater imbalance in the land. There are rumors of dark magic at work, of a sorcerer who seeks to disrupt the natural order for his own gain. Aria's interest was piqued. If there was dark magic involved, it could explain a lot. Do you know where this sorcerer might be? I might be able to stop him. The elder shook his head. No one knows for sure. But there are whispers of an old, abandoned tower in the mountains. It is said to be a place of great power, and many strange things have been reported in that area. It could be the sorcerer's lair. Aria decided that she would investigate the tower. But she knew she couldn't do it alone. She turned to the villagers. I need some of you to come with me. We might face danger, but together, we can stop this sorcerer and prevent further disasters. A group of brave young men and women stepped forward, their eyes filled with determination. Aria was touched by their willingness to help. Thank you. We'll leave at first light. That night, Aria lay awake in the small hut the villagers had provided for her. She thought about the time gate and how her actions in this era could have implications for the future. She knew that she was treading on dangerous ground, but she couldn't stand by and watch the people suffer. The next morning, Aria and her small band of villagers set off towards the mountains. The journey was long and arduous. The sun beat down on them, and the path was rugged and filled with obstacles. But they pressed on, driven by the hope of ending the drought and the threat of the sorcerer. As they climbed higher into the mountains, the air grew colder. Aria could see the old tower in the distance. It stood tall and imposing, its dark silhouette against the clear blue sky sending a shiver down her spine. When they reached the base of the tower, they noticed that the area was eerily quiet. There were no signs of life, not even the sound of birds or insects. Aria motioned for the villagers to stay behind as she cautiously approached the tower. The door to the tower was made of a heavy, iron-bound wood. Aria pushed on it, and to her surprise, it creaked open. Inside, the air was musty and filled with a strange, greenish glow. The walls were lined with shelves filled with strange potions, scrolls, and artifacts. Aria began to search the room, looking for any signs of the sorcerer or something that could explain the drought. As she was rummaging through a pile of scrolls, she heard a noise from above. It was a soft, chanting sound. She motioned for the villagers to follow her quietly. They climbed the stairs, their footsteps echoing in the silence. As they reached the top of the tower, they found themselves in a large, circular room. In the center of the room, there was a large, black cauldron. The sorcerer, a tall, thin man with a long, black beard and glowing red eyes, was standing over the cauldron, chanting an incantation. Aria stepped forward. Stop this! Your magic is causing the drought and bringing suffering to the people." The sorcerer looked up, a sneer on his face. "You think you can stop me? You're a fool. The drought is just the beginning. I seek to reshape the world in my image, and no one can stop me." Aria drew her dagger. "We won't let you get away with this." The sorcerer laughed. "You and these simple villagers? You're no match for me." With that, he waved his hand, and a blast of dark magic shot towards Aria and the villagers. Aria quickly raised a shield of magic, which she had learned during her travels. The dark magic hit the shield, causing it to shimmer and shake. The villagers, though scared, did not back down. They rushed at the sorcerer, armed with their simple weapons. The sorcerer countered their attacks with more dark magic, but Aria and the villagers fought back with all their might. Aria knew that they needed to find a way to disrupt the sorcerer's magic. She looked around the room and noticed that the cauldron was the source of his power. If they could destroy the cauldron, they might be able to stop him. "Focus on the cauldron," Aria shouted to the villagers. They changed their strategy and began to attack the cauldron. The sorcerer, realizing their plan, tried to stop them. He sent more powerful blasts of dark magic, but Aria used all her strength to keep the shield up. One of the villagers managed to land a blow on the cauldron. The cauldron shook, and the sorcerer let out a scream of rage. Aria took this opportunity to launch a counter-attack. She sent a bolt of light magic towards the sorcerer, which hit him square in the chest. The sorcerer stumbled backwards, and another villager landed a final blow on the cauldron. The cauldron shattered, and a wave of energy swept through the room. The sorcerer's dark magic was dispelled, and he fell to the ground, defeated. Aria and the villagers stood over the sorcerer, their hearts pounding. "You failed," Aria said. "Your reign of terror is over." The sorcerer looked up at her, his eyes filled with hatred. "This isn't over. There are others like me, and they will continue my work." Aria ignored his words. She knew that she had to make sure that the sorcerer couldn't cause any more trouble. She used a binding spell to tie him up. "We'll take you back to the village, and you'll face justice." With the sorcerer in custody, Aria and the villagers made their way back down the mountain. The journey back was filled with a sense of relief. They had managed to stop the sorcerer and, hopefully, end the drought. When they reached the village, the news of their victory spread like wildfire. The villagers were overjoyed. They celebrated, and the elder thanked Aria and the brave villagers for their heroism. Aria, however, knew that her work wasn't done. She needed to make sure that the drought was truly over and that the land was restored to its former state. She spent the next few days working with the villagers to plant seeds, repair the irrigation systems, and ensure that the water supply was stable. As the days passed, the land began to show signs of recovery. The once parched fields were now green with new growth, and the villagers' spirits were high. Aria was happy to see the positive changes, but she also knew that she had to return to the Time Gate. Before leaving, she gathered the villagers. "I must go now. But remember, you are a strong and resilient people. Take care of each other and the land. And if you ever need help, know that there are those who will come to your aid." The villagers thanked her, and Aria made her way back to the Time Gate. As she stepped through the swirling portal, she felt a sense of sadness at leaving the village, but also a sense of accomplishment. Back in the ancient hall, the old guardian of the Time Gate was waiting for her. "You have done well, Aria," he said. "But as you know, every action in the past creates ripples in time. We must now see what effects your deeds have had." The old man waved his hand, and a large, crystal-like screen appeared in the air. The screen showed different scenes from the present and the future. Aria watched in amazement as she saw the village thriving, its people prosperous. But she also noticed some subtle changes in other parts of the world. There were signs of unrest in a neighboring kingdom. It seemed that the disruption of the sorcerer's magic had caused a shift in the balance of power. Aria was worried. "What can we do to fix this?" she asked. The old man sighed. "Time is a complex web, Aria. Every action has consequences, both good and bad. We must be careful how we proceed. You have the power to make more changes, but you must consider the long-term effects." Aria nodded. She knew that the old man was right. She couldn't just rush in and try to fix everything. She needed to think carefully and plan her next move. "I want to learn more about this kingdom and the reasons for the unrest," Aria said. "Can the Time Gate take me there?" The old man nodded. "Yes, it can. But be cautious. The situation in that kingdom is delicate, and one wrong move could lead to even more chaos." Aria took a deep breath. "I'm ready. I'll do everything in my power to bring balance and peace." The old man waved his hand, and the Time Gate began to swirl with light. Aria stepped through the gate, ready to face the new challenges that awaited her in the troubled kingdom. As she emerged on the other side of the gate, she found herself in a busy marketplace. The people were bustling about, but there was an undercurrent of tension in the air. Aria could sense that something was wrong. She approached a merchant who was selling fruits. "Excuse me, she said. I'm new here. What's been going on? There seems to be a lot of unrest. The merchant looked at her warily. It's the king. He's been making some unpopular decisions. Raising taxes, conscripting young men into the army. People are starting to lose faith in him. Aria thanked the merchant and began to explore the city. She needed to find out more about the king and his motives. As she walked through the streets, she noticed that there were soldiers everywhere. They were watching the people closely, as if expecting trouble. Aria knew that she had to be careful. She couldn't just barge in and try to talk to the king. She needed to gain the trust of the people first and find out what was really going on. She decided to start by helping some of the people in the city. She found a group of women who were struggling to carry water from a well. Aria offered to help them. As she worked, she talked to the women, learning more about their lives and the problems they were facing. One of the women, a kind-faced woman named Elise, told Aria about the king's recent actions. He used to be a good king, Elise said. But lately, he's been acting strange. Some say he's been influenced by a group of advisors who are only interested in their own gain. Aria listened intently. She knew that she needed to find a way to get to the king and convince him to change his ways. But first, she needed to gather more information. Over the next few days, Aria continued to help the people in the city. She fixed a broken bridge, helped a blacksmith with his work, and even taught some children how to read. Through these actions, she began to gain the trust of the people. One day, a young boy approached her. Aria, he said. I know someone who might be able to help you. His name is Marcus. He's a former advisor to the king, but he was thrown out because he opposed the king's new policies. Aria's eyes lit up. Can you take me to him? The boy nodded. Yes, but we have to be careful. Marcus is in hiding. Aria followed the boy through the narrow, winding streets of the city. They entered a small, dilapidated house. Inside, a man was sitting at a table, poring over some papers. Marcus, the boy said. This is Aria. She wants to help us. Marcus looked up at Aria. His eyes were tired, but there was a spark of hope in them. You're a stranger in our land. Why do you want to help? Aria explained her mission. I've seen the suffering of the people. I want to help bring back peace and prosperity. I believe that the king can be made to see reason. Marcus nodded. I hope you're right. The king is a good man at heart, but he's been led astray. But getting to him won't be easy. He's surrounded by guards and advisors who won't let anyone get close to him. Aria thought for a moment. Is there any way we can get a message to him? Maybe if we can show him the true state of the kingdom, he'll change his ways. Marcus smiled. There might be a way. The king has a daughter, Princess Isabella. She's a kind-hearted girl, and she cares about the people. If we can convince her to talk to the king, it might make a difference. Aria knew that this was their best chance. How do we get in touch with the princess? She asked. Marcus leaned back in his chair. I know someone who works in the palace. He can arrange a meeting with the princess. But it will be dangerous. We'll have to be very careful. Aria nodded. I'm willing to take the risk. We have to do something to help the people. Marcus and Aria began to plan their next move. They knew that the road ahead was filled with challenges, but they were determined to bring about a positive change in the kingdom. As they sat there, discussing their plans, Aria couldn't help but wonder what the future held. Would they be able to convince the king to change his ways? Or would their efforts be in vain? Only time would tell. Chapter 4: The King's Dilemma and the Path to Resolution. Aria, Marcus, and the young boy who had led them to Marcus spent the next few hours meticulously planning their approach to Princess Isabella. Marcus explained that the palace was a labyrinth of corridors, filled with guards and spies loyal to the king's current circle of advisors. The slightest misstep could lead to their capture and the failure of their mission. Our contact in the palace, Marcus began, is a chambermaid named Lila. She's a trusted friend, and she'll do what she can to arrange a meeting with the princess. But we must be extremely cautious. The king's advisors have eyes and ears everywhere. Aria nodded, her mind already racing with the implications. What's the best way to communicate with Lila? And how do we ensure that the princess will be receptive to our message? Marcus stroked his chin in thought. I'll send the boy to deliver a coded message to Lila. The message will explain the situation and request a meeting with the princess in a secluded part of the palace gardens. As for the princess, she's known for her kind heart and her concern for the people. Once she hears about the suffering of her subjects, I'm confident she'll be willing to listen. The young boy, whose name was Finn, eagerly volunteered to carry the message. Aria gave him some final instructions, emphasizing the importance of secrecy. Finn, this is a dangerous task. Make sure no one sees you delivering the message. If you're in any danger, abandon the mission and come back here. Finn nodded bravely. I'll be careful, Aria. I want to help my people, too. With that, he slipped out of the house and into the bustling streets of the city. While they waited for Finn's return, Aria and Marcus continued to discuss their strategy. "We need to have a clear plan of what we'll say to the princess," Aria said. "We can't just tell her about the problems, we need to offer solutions." Marcus agreed. "I've been thinking about that. We could suggest a series of reforms, like reducing taxes, providing aid to the poor, and re-evaluating the conscription policy. But we also need to be prepared for the princess to be skeptical. She may not trust us, considering we're outsiders." As the hours passed, Aria grew increasingly anxious. What if Finn was caught? What if the princess refused to meet with them? But she tried to stay positive. She had come too far to give up now. Finally, just as the sun was starting to set, Finn returned. His face was flushed, and he was slightly out of breath, but he had a triumphant look in his eyes. "I did it!" he exclaimed. "I gave the message to Lila. She said she'll do her best to arrange a meeting with the princess for tomorrow morning, in the east wing of the palace gardens." Aria and Marcus exchanged relieved glances. "Well done, Finn," Aria said, smiling. "Now, we need to prepare what we're going to say to the princess." That night, Aria couldn't sleep. She lay on a makeshift bed in Marcus's house, going over their plan again and again in her mind. She knew that this meeting with the princess was crucial. It could be the key to bringing about the much-needed change in the kingdom. The next morning, Aria and Marcus set off for the palace. They dressed in simple clothes to blend in with the servants and workers in the area. As they approached the palace gates, Aria felt a knot form in her stomach. The guards at the gate eyed them suspiciously, but they managed to pass through without incident, thanks to Marcus's knowledge of the palace's comings and goings. Once inside, they made their way to the east wing of the palace gardens. The gardens were a beautiful sight, filled with colorful flowers, tall trees, and marble statues. But Aria was too focused on the task at hand to appreciate the beauty around her. After waiting for a few minutes, they heard the sound of soft footsteps. A young woman, dressed in a simple yet elegant gown, appeared around a hedge. It was Princess Isabella. She was accompanied by Lila, who gave Aria and Marcus a small nod. "Marcus," the princess said, her voice filled with surprise. "It's been a long time. And who is this?" she asked, looking at Aria. Marcus stepped forward. "Your Highness, this is Aria. She's come from afar to help our kingdom. We need to talk to you about the current situation." The princess looked skeptical. "I'm listening. But know that I'm very cautious about who I trust these days." Aria took a deep breath and began to speak. Your Highness, I've seen the suffering of your people. The high taxes are pushing them to the brink of poverty, and the conscription is tearing families apart. I believe that the king, your father, is being misled by his current advisors. The princess listened intently, her expression serious. I've noticed some of these problems myself. But my father is a proud man, and he's been very resistant to my suggestions for change. How do you propose we solve these issues? Aria outlined the reforms they had discussed. We could start by reducing the tax burden on the poor. This would give them a chance to rebuild their lives and contribute more to the economy. As for conscription, we could make it more voluntary and provide better training and support for the soldiers. The princess considered Aria's words. These are good ideas, but implementing them won't be easy. My father is surrounded by advisors who have their own interests at heart. They won't give up their power easily. Marcus stepped in. Your Highness, you have influence over the king. If you can convince him to listen to us, we can present a detailed plan. We believe that with your help, we can turn this kingdom around. The princess paced back and forth for a few moments, deep in thought. Finally, she stopped and looked at Aria and Marcus. I'll do it. I'll talk to my father and try to arrange a meeting for you. But you must be prepared. He may not be receptive at first. Aria and Marcus thanked the princess profusely. We'll be ready, Your Highness, Aria said. We're confident that if the king hears the truth about the state of the kingdom, he'll make the right decision. The princess nodded. I hope you're right. I love my kingdom and my people, and I don't want to see them suffer any longer. With that, the princess and Lila left the gardens. Aria and Marcus knew that they had made progress, but the hardest part was yet to come. They had to convince the king to listen to their ideas and implement the necessary reforms. Over the next few days, they waited for the princess's message. Aria used this time to gather more information about the kingdom's economy and social structure. She wanted to be as prepared as possible for the meeting with the king. Finally, a messenger from the princess arrived. The king had agreed to meet with them, but he was still skeptical. The meeting was set for the following day, in the king's private study. Aria and Marcus spent the rest of the day rehearsing what they would say to the king. They knew that they had to be persuasive, yet respectful. The king was a powerful man, and one wrong word could ruin everything. The next day, they made their way to the king's private study. The study was a large, opulent room, filled with bookshelves, a massive desk, and a fireplace. The king, a tall, imposing man with a stern face, was sitting at his desk when they entered. Marcus, the king said, his voice cold. "It's been a long time since you were in this room. And you've brought a stranger with you. What is this all about?" Marcus bowed. "Your Majesty, this is Aria. She's come to offer some solutions to the problems our kingdom is facing. We believe that with your wisdom and leadership, we can turn things around." The king looked at Aria. "I've heard some of your proposed reforms from my daughter, but I'm not convinced. My advisors tell me that these changes will weaken the kingdom." Aria stepped forward. "Your Majesty, I understand your concerns. But the current policies are causing great suffering among your people. The high taxes are driving them into poverty, and the conscription is creating unrest. If we make these changes, we can boost the economy, improve morale, and strengthen the kingdom from within." The king listened intently, his expression unreadable. "And how do you propose we implement these changes without causing further disruption? There are powerful interests at stake here." Aria took a deep breath. "We can start by forming a council of advisors from different sectors of the kingdom. This council can help us develop a phased plan for implementation. We can also ensure that the wealthy contribute their fair share, so the burden isn't solely on the poor." The king leaned back in his chair, his eyes still fixed on Aria. "These are bold ideas. But I need time to consider them. I've trusted my current advisors for a long time, and it's not easy to change my mind." Marcus spoke up. "Your Majesty, we understand. But please, think about the well-being of your people. The suffering is real, and it's getting worse every day." The king nodded. "I will consider your proposals. But I make no promises. You may leave for now." Aria and Marcus bowed and left the study. As they walked out of the palace, Aria felt a sense of disappointment. She had hoped that the king would be more receptive. But Marcus tried to comfort her. "It's a start, Aria. The king is considering our ideas. That's more than we could have hoped for at first." Over the next few days, Aria and Marcus waited anxiously for the king's decision. They continued to work on refining their proposals, adding more details and potential solutions to the problems the king had raised. Finally, a messenger arrived from the palace. The king had made his decision. Aria and Marcus were summoned back to the palace to hear the king's verdict. When they entered the king's study, the king looked at them with a more relaxed expression. "I've considered your proposals," he said. "And I've decided to give them a chance. I'll form the council of advisors as you suggested, and we'll start implementing the reforms in a phased manner." Aria and Marcus were overjoyed. "Thank you, Your Majesty," Aria said. "You've made the right decision. I'm confident that these reforms will bring prosperity and peace back to the kingdom." The king nodded. "I hope you're right. I've put my trust in you. Now, let's get to work." Over the next few weeks, Aria and Marcus worked closely with the king and the newly formed Council of Advisors. The reforms were slowly but surely being implemented. The tax burden on the poor was reduced, and a more fair and voluntary conscription system was put in place. As the weeks turned into months, the kingdom began to show signs of improvement. The economy started to pick up, and the people's morale was high. Aria had achieved what she had set out to do. She had helped bring about positive change in the kingdom. But she knew that her journey wasn't over. The Time Gate still held many mysteries, and there were other eras and places that might need her help. Before leaving, she said goodbye to Marcus, Finn, and the people of the kingdom. They thanked her for her help and wished her well on her future adventures. Aria then made her way back to the Time Gate. As she stepped through the portal, she was filled with a sense of accomplishment. But she also knew that there was more work to be done. The old guardian of the Time Gate was waiting for her on the other side. "You've done well, Aria," he said. "But the fabric of time is vast, and there are always new challenges. What would you like to do next?" Aria thought for a moment. "I want to explore more eras, to see if there are other places where I can make a difference. But I also want to learn more about the Time Gate itself. There are so many questions I still have." The old guardian smiled. "Very well. The Time Gate is at your service. But remember, with great power comes great responsibility." Aria nodded. She was ready to face whatever challenges awaited her. The Time Gate shimmered with light, and Aria stepped through it, into a new era and a new adventure. She knew that the journey ahead would be filled with unknowns, but she was determined to use the power of the Time Gate for good, to bring hope and change to the worlds of the past. As she disappeared into the swirling light, the old guardian watched with a sense of pride. Aria was a true champion of time, and he was confident that she would continue to make a positive impact on the fabric of history. Chapter 5: The Enigmatic Library of Time and the Cosmic Conundrum. Aria emerged from the Time Gate into a realm that was unlike any she had seen before. She found herself in a vast, circular chamber. The walls were made of a strange, iridescent crystal that seemed to shift colors as if reflecting the passage of time itself. In the center of the chamber stood a colossal tree, its branches reaching up to the high, domed ceiling. Each leaf on the tree was a different shade of silver, and they rustled softly, creating a gentle, melodious sound. As Aria approached the tree, She noticed that the trunk was inscribed with symbols similar to those she had seen on the time gate and the stone in the forest. But these symbols were more complex, as if they held the secrets of the universe. What is this place? She wondered aloud. Suddenly, a soft, disembodied voice filled the chamber. "Welcome, Aria. This is the enigmatic Library of Time. A place where the stories of all eras are preserved, written not in books, but in the very fabric of this realm." Aria looked around, trying to find the source of the voice. "Who are you? Show yourself," she called out. The voice laughed gently. "I have no physical form, Aria. I am the spirit of this place, a guardian of the knowledge that lies within. You have come seeking answers, and this is the place where you may find them." Aria was intrigued. "I want to know more about the Time Gate, about its origin and purpose. And I also want to understand how my actions in the past affect the future." The spirit replied, "The Time Gate was created by ancient beings of great power. They sought to connect the different eras, not for the sake of power, but for the pursuit of knowledge and the preservation of balance. Each time you use the Time Gate to intervene in an era, you create a ripple in the cosmic fabric. These ripples can either strengthen the balance or disrupt it, depending on your actions." Aria nodded, trying to absorb this new information. "But how can I be sure that I'm making the right choices? How do I know if my actions will lead to a positive outcome?" The spirit answered, "There is no certainty, Aria. The future is a tapestry woven with countless threads of possibility. You must rely on your judgment, your heart, and the knowledge you gain from each journey. Look around you. The tree in the center of the chamber holds the stories of time. Each leaf represents an event, a decision, a moment that has shaped the past, present, and future." Aria walked closer to the tree. She reached out and touched one of the silver leaves. As she did, a vision filled her mind. She saw a great battle between two ancient civilizations. The ground was littered with the bodies of warriors, and the sky was filled with dark clouds of magic. "What am I seeing?" she asked. The spirit responded, "This is an event from a distant past. A pivotal moment where a wrong decision led to the downfall of one civilization and the rise of another. But this is not the only possible outcome. If different choices had been made, history could have taken a different path." Aria was fascinated. "So, can I change the outcome of this event? Can I go back and make a different choice?" The spirit was silent for a moment. "It is possible, but it is a dangerous path. Changing one event can have far-reaching consequences. You must consider the entire tapestry of time before you make such a decision. And even then, there are forces at work that may resist your intervention. Aria spent the next few hours exploring the chamber, touching different leaves and experiencing the visions of past events. She saw the birth of great kingdoms, the discovery of powerful magics, and the destruction caused by natural disasters. Each vision was a lesson, a glimpse into the complexity of time. As she was exploring, she noticed a particularly large leaf near the top of the tree. It was a deep, midnight blue, and it seemed to pulsate with a strange energy. Aria felt drawn to it. She climbed up the tree, using the branches as steps. When she reached the leaf, she touched it. A vision filled her mind, but this one was different. She saw a dark, shadowy figure standing in the middle of a desolate landscape. The figure was holding a large, black crystal, and it was chanting an incantation. As the figure chanted, dark energy spread out from the crystal, consuming everything in its path. Aria gasped. "What is this? Who is that figure?" The spirit's voice was grave. "This is a vision of a future threat, Aria. A powerful being who seeks to use a dark crystal to rewrite the laws of time and space. If this being succeeds, it could plunge the entire universe into chaos." Aria was determined. "I can't let that happen. How can I stop this?" The spirit replied, "To stop this threat, you must first understand the nature of the dark crystal. It is said to be hidden in a place beyond time, a realm where the normal rules of reality do not apply. You will need to use the time gate to find this realm, but be warned, it is a dangerous journey. The forces that guard the crystal will not let you take it easily." Aria knew that she had to act. "I'm ready. I'll do whatever it takes to prevent this threat from becoming a reality." The spirit guided Aria back to the time gate. "When you step through the gate this time, focus your mind on the vision of the desolate landscape. The time gate will take you to the closest point in time and space to the realm where the dark crystal is hidden. But remember, once you enter that realm, you will be on your own." Aria took a deep breath and stepped through the time gate. As she did, she focused on the vision of the desolate landscape. The swirling light of the time gate surrounded her, and she felt a strange sensation, as if she was being stretched and compressed at the same time. When the light subsided, Aria found herself in a place that defied description. The sky was a deep, purplish, black, and there were no stars. The ground was made of a strange, gelatinous substance that seemed to shift and move beneath her feet. In the distance, she could see a large, obsidian tower. She knew that the dark crystal was inside that tower. As she started walking towards the tower, she felt a sense of foreboding. The air was thick with a strange energy, and she could feel eyes watching her. Suddenly, a group of shadowy creatures emerged from the ground. They were humanoid in shape, but their bodies were made of pure shadow. They hissed and growled as they advanced towards Aria. Aria quickly drew her dagger. She knew that she was in for a tough fight. The shadowy creatures lunged at her, their sharp claws extended. Aria dodged their attacks, using her agility to stay out of reach. She then counter-attacked, slashing at the creatures with her dagger. But her dagger seemed to pass through the creatures as if they were made of mist. Aria realized that she needed a different approach. She closed her eyes and focused her magic. She summoned a ball of light in her hand and threw it at the creatures. The light hit the shadowy forms, and they let out screeches of pain. The light seemed to weaken them, and Aria took the opportunity to press her attack. She continued to send blasts of light at the creatures, and slowly but surely, they began to dissipate. Once the last of the creatures had vanished, Aria continued on her way towards the tower. When she reached the tower, the door was locked. Aria examined the door and found a series of symbols engraved on it. They were similar to the symbols she had seen in the enigmatic Library of Time. She concentrated, trying to decipher the symbols. After a few moments, she realized that the symbols were a riddle. The key to open lies in the past, in a moment of great loss. Find the memory, unlock the door. Aria read the riddle aloud. She thought for a moment, trying to understand what it meant. Then, she remembered the visions she had seen in the library. One of the visions was of a great city being destroyed by a powerful earthquake. Could that be the moment of great loss? Aria closed her eyes and focused her mind. She reached out with her magic, trying to connect to the memory of that event. Suddenly, she felt a strange sensation, as if she was being pulled into a different time and space. She found herself in the middle of the doomed city. The ground was shaking, and buildings were collapsing all around her. Aria looked around, trying to find the key. She noticed a small, golden box lying in the rubble. She picked up the box, and as she did, the vision faded, and she was back in front of the tower door. She inserted the box into a small slot in the door, and with a loud click, the door opened. Aria entered the tower. Inside, it was dark, and the air was filled with a cold, damp smell. She could see a faint glow coming from the top of the tower. She started climbing the stairs, her heart pounding with anticipation. As she reached the top of the tower, she saw the dark crystal. It was a large, faceted crystal, pulsating with a dark, malevolent energy. Standing next to the crystal was the shadowy figure from her vision. "You should not have come here, Aria," the figure said, its voice deep and menacing. "This crystal is mine, and with it, I will reshape the universe in my image." Aria stood her ground. "I won't let you use this crystal for evil. I'm here to stop you." The figure laughed. "You? You're just a naive girl. You have no idea of the power you're dealing with." With that, the figure launched a blast of dark energy at Aria. Aria quickly raised a shield of light magic to protect herself. The dark energy hit the shield, causing it to tremble and flicker. Aria knew that she had to act quickly. She couldn't hold the shield for long. She looked around the room, trying to find a way to disarm the figure. She noticed that the crystal was connected to the figure by a series of dark, glowing cords. If she could sever those cords, she might be able to weaken the figure. Aria summoned all her strength and sent a powerful blast of light towards the cords. The light hit the cords, and they began to break. The figure let out a scream of rage as it felt its connection to the crystal being severed. Taking advantage of the figure's distraction, Aria rushed towards the crystal. She reached out and grabbed it. As she did, a surge of dark energy coursed through her body. But Aria was determined. She used her willpower to resist the energy and began to purify the crystal with her light magic. The figure tried to stop her, but Aria was too focused. She continued to pour her magic into the crystal, and slowly, the dark energy was replaced by a pure, white light. The crystal transformed into a beautiful, clear crystal, its power now cleansed. The shadowy figure, now weakened, disappeared into the darkness. Aria knew that it was not completely defeated, but for now, she had stopped the immediate threat. With the purified crystal in her hand, Aria made her way back to the time gate. She knew that she had a lot to tell the spirit of the enigmatic library of time. And she also knew that her journey was far from over. There were still many threats to the balance of time and space, and she was determined to face them all. As she stepped through the time gate, she emerged back in the circular chamber. The spirit of the library greeted her. "Well done, Aria. You have faced a great challenge and emerged victorious. But there is still much work to be done. The shadowy figure will surely return, and we must be prepared." Aria nodded. "I'm ready. I'll do whatever it takes to protect the balance of time and space." The spirit smiled. "I have no doubt, Aria. Now, let us study this purified crystal. It may hold the key to understanding the forces that seek to disrupt the universe." Aria and the spirit of the library began their study of the crystal. Aria knew that her adventures through the Time Gate had just entered a new phase, and she was excited and ready to face whatever came her way. The future was filled with uncertainty, but she was confident in her ability to make a difference. The enigmatic Library of Time and the Time Gate were her allies, and together, they would safeguard the cosmic order. Chapter 6: The Legacy of the Crystal and the Gathering Storm. Aria and the spirit of the enigmatic Library of Time delved deep into the study of the purified crystal. Its surface now sparkled with a soft, iridescent light, a far cry from the malevolent glow it once had. As they examined it, strange images and symbols began to appear on the crystal's surface, as if it was trying to communicate its secrets. The spirit, its disembodied voice filled with a sense of wonder, said, "These symbols are like nothing I've ever seen before. They seem to hold the knowledge of ancient cosmic forces, forces that could either be our greatest allies or our most formidable enemies." Aria nodded, her eyes fixed on the ever-changing symbols. "I think the crystal was a key, not just to the shadowy figure's plans, but to something much larger. Maybe it can show us how to prevent similar threats in the future." They spent hours trying to decipher the symbols. Aria used her knowledge of the symbols she had encountered during her previous adventures, while the spirit drew on its vast knowledge of the Time Gate and the cosmic fabric. Slowly but surely, they began to piece together a partial understanding. The symbols seemed to tell a story of an ancient race that had once ruled the universe. This race, known as the Astral Ones, had created powerful artifacts, including the dark crystal in its original form. The crystal was meant to be a source of ultimate power, a way to maintain the balance of the multiverse. However, over time, the crystal was stolen by a rogue faction within the Astral Ones. This faction, driven by greed and a thirst for power, sought to use the crystal to bend the universe to their will. The spirit mused, "If this is true, then the shadowy figure we faced might be a descendant of that rogue faction, or perhaps even a servant of their ancient will. And there could be more like them, waiting in the shadows." Aria's brows furrowed in concern. "We can't let that happen. We need to find a way to stop them before they can cause more damage. But first, we need to understand how the crystal was originally used to maintain balance." As they continued their study, the crystal suddenly emitted a bright flash of light. When the light subsided, a new set of symbols appeared. These symbols seemed to be a map, not of a physical location, but of a place within the cosmic energy streams. The spirit gasped. This could be the location of the Astral One's ancient citadel. If we can find it, we might be able to learn more about the crystal's true purpose and how to use it to safeguard the multiverse. Aria was determined. "Then we should go. The Time Gate can take us there, right?" The spirit hesitated. The time gate can take us close, but this place exists in a realm where time and space are intertwined in complex ways. Once we're there, we'll have to rely on our wits and the power of the crystal itself to navigate. Aria prepared herself for the journey. She held the crystal tightly, feeling its new-found power coursing through her. With a nod to the spirit, she stepped through the time gate, focusing her mind on the map, like symbols. The journey through the time gate was more turbulent than usual. The swirling lights around her seemed to be fighting against her, as if the very fabric of time was reluctant to let her reach her destination. But Aria held on, her resolve unshaken. When she emerged on the other side, she found herself in a place that defied all logic. The sky was filled with swirling colors, not of the normal spectrum, but of hues that seemed to belong to another dimension. The ground beneath her feet was a translucent substance that seemed to pulse with a faint energy. In the distance, she could see a massive, floating structure. It was the Astral One's citadel, a magnificent edifice made of a material that sparkled like stardust. As she made her way towards the citadel, she noticed strange, ethereal creatures floating in the air. They were like wisps of light, their forms constantly changing. Some of them approached her curiously, while others seemed to be on guard. Aria decided to try and communicate with them. She held up the purified crystal, and to her surprise, the creatures seemed to respond. One of them, a larger wisp that glowed with a deep blue light, came closer. Aria spoke softly. "I'm Aria. I've come seeking knowledge about the crystal. I want to use it to protect the multiverse from those who would use it for evil." The blue, glowing wisp seemed to understand. It began to emit a series of soft, musical tones. Aria listened intently, and slowly, she started to make out the meaning. The wisp was telling her that the citadel was a place of great power, but also of great danger. Only those who were worthy could enter and learn its secrets. Aria nodded. "I understand. But I'm determined to do what's right. Please, can you help me?" The wisp considered her request. After a moment, it sent out a pulse of energy that seemed to create a path through the floating debris and other obstacles towards the citadel. Aria thanked the wisp and started walking along the path. As she neared the citadel, she felt a powerful energy field surrounding it. The field was both inviting and menacing. Aria knew that she had to be careful. She reached out with the crystal, and to her surprise, the crystal seemed to resonate with the energy field. The field parted, allowing her to enter. Inside the citadel, the air was filled with a soft, golden light. The walls were adorned with more symbols, similar to those on the crystal but even more complex. Aria walked through the corridors, her eyes wide with wonder and caution. Suddenly, she heard a voice. It was deep and ancient, as if it had been waiting for her for eons. "You have come, Aria. But do you truly understand the weight of what you seek?" Aria looked around, trying to find the source of the voice. "I'm here to learn how to use the crystal to protect the multiverse. I know it's a great responsibility, but I'm ready." The voice laughed, a sound that echoed through the corridors. "Readiness is not enough. You must prove yourself worthy. There are trials ahead, trials that will test your courage, your wisdom, and your heart." Aria squared her shoulders. "I'm ready for the trials. I won't let the multiverse be destroyed by those who seek power." The voice seemed to approve. "Very well. The first trial is one of knowledge. In the next chamber, there are scrolls that hold the history of the crystal and its creation. You must study them and answer a series of questions. Fail, and you will be sent back." Aria entered the chamber. It was filled with shelves upon shelves of scrolls. She began to search through them, her mind racing. The scrolls were written in a language that was both familiar and strange. But with the knowledge she had gained from her previous adventures and the help of the Spirit's teachings, she was able to decipher them. She spent hours poring over the scrolls, learning about the crystal's origin, its intended use, and the events that led to its corruption. Finally, she felt ready for the questions. The voice boomed, "Tell me, Aria, what was the original purpose of the crystal?" Aria answered, "The crystal was meant to be a regulator of cosmic energy, ensuring that the balance between the different forces of the multiverse was maintained. It was a tool of harmony, not of domination." The voice was silent for a moment. Then it said, "Correct. Now, how was the crystal corrupted?" Aria replied, "A rogue faction within the Astral Ones, driven by greed and a lust for power, stole the crystal. They used dark magic to twist its purpose, turning it into a weapon for their own gain." The voice seemed satisfied. "You have passed the first trial. But the next trial will be more difficult. It is a trial of courage." Aria was led to a new chamber. This chamber was filled with darkness. A cold wind blew through the room, and she could hear strange noises, as if there were unseen creatures lurking in the shadows. The voice said, "In this darkness, there are illusions that will test your courage. You must face them and not be swayed. Only then can you proceed." Aria took a deep breath. She knew that fear would only cloud her judgment. She held the crystal in front of her, and its light began to push back the darkness. As she walked forward, the illusions began to appear. She saw the shadowy figure she had faced before, but this time, it was accompanied by hordes of other dark creatures. They lunged at her, their eyes glowing with hatred. But Aria stood her ground. She knew they were illusions, and she used the crystal's light to dispel them. Next, she saw visions of her friends and allies in danger. She wanted to rush to their aid, but she reminded herself that it was just an illusion. She continued to walk forward, her resolve unwavering. Finally, the darkness began to lift. Aria had passed the trial of courage. The voice said, "You have shown great courage, Aria. But the final trial is the most difficult. It is a trial of the heart." She was led to a chamber that was filled with a warm, comforting light. In the center of the chamber, there was a pool of liquid that seemed to be made of pure, liquid starlight. The voice said, "This pool holds the essence of the multiverse. You must look into it and see the true nature of the balance you seek to protect. Then, you must make a choice. A choice that will determine whether you are worthy to wield the power of the crystal." Aria approached the pool. As she looked into it, she saw a vision of the multiverse. She saw the countless worlds, each one unique, each one dependent on the others for balance. She saw the delicate web of relationships between the different races, the ebb and flow of cosmic energy, and the potential for both great good and great evil. In the vision, she also saw a future where the shadowy figure and its allies had succeeded in their plans. The multiverse was in chaos, the worlds were crumbling, and the balance was destroyed. But she also saw a future where she and others like her had managed to protect the multiverse, where peace and harmony reigned. Aria knew what she had to do. She said, "I choose to use the crystal to protect the multiverse, to maintain the balance, and to ensure that the future is one of peace and harmony. I will not let the shadowy figure and those like it win." The voice boomed, "You have passed the final trial, Aria. You are worthy to wield the power of the crystal. With it, you can safeguard the multiverse from those who seek to disrupt its balance." Aria felt a surge of energy coursing through her. The crystal seemed to respond to her choice, its light growing brighter. She knew that her journey was far from over. There were still the shadowy figure and its allies to face, but now, she had the knowledge and the power to make a difference. As she left the citadel, the ethereal creatures that had helped her before greeted her with a shower of light. They seemed to be celebrating her success. Aria thanked them and made her way back to the Time Gate. Back in the enigmatic Library of Time, the spirit was waiting for her. "You've done it, Aria. You've proven yourself worthy. But now, the real work begins. The shadowy figure will surely know of your success, and they will be preparing their next move. We must be ready. Aria nodded. I'm ready. I have a better understanding of the crystal and its power now. And I'm determined to use it to stop the shadowy figure and its allies once and for all. The spirit and Aria began to plan their next steps. They knew that the shadowy figure would not give up easily. There would be more battles, more challenges, but Aria was confident. She had the crystal, the knowledge from the citadel, and the spirit of the library by her side. Together, they would face the gathering storm and protect the multiverse from the forces of darkness. The legacy of the crystal was now in Aria's hands, and she was ready to fulfill her destiny. Chapter 7: The Confrontation and the Final Battle. Aria and the spirit of the enigmatic Library of Time spent days formulating a strategy to face the shadowy figure and its allies. They knew that the enemy would be expecting them, so they had to be extremely cautious and well prepared. The spirit, drawing on its vast knowledge of the cosmic fabric, explained, "The shadowy figure will likely try to regain the crystal at all costs. They know that with it, they can resume their plan to disrupt the multiverse. We need to anticipate their moves and set traps of our own." Aria nodded, her eyes focused and determined. "We should also gather allies. There are many who would stand with us to protect the multiverse. I've seen the power of unity in my previous adventures." They decided to start by reaching out to the various races and beings Aria had encountered during her travels. She used the Time Gate to visit the drought-stricken village, the kingdom she had helped reform, and the forest where she had first found clues about the Time Gate. She explained the impending threat to the multiverse and asked for their help. The villagers, the king, and his subjects, and the forest creatures were all eager to assist. They remembered Aria's kindness and the positive changes she had brought to their lives. The king offered his army's support, the villagers provided supplies and local knowledge, and the forest creatures promised to use their natural magic to aid in the battle. As they were gathering their forces, Aria had a vision. She saw the shadowy figure in a dark, underground lair, surrounded by other dark-clad figures. They were chanting incantations, and a large, dark portal was starting to form in the center of the lair. Aria knew that they were up against a race against time. The shadowy figure is trying to open a portal to another realm, perhaps to bring in more powerful allies or dark forces, she told the spirit. The spirit was alarmed. "We must stop them before they can complete the ritual. If they succeed, the multiverse will be in even greater danger." Aria and her newly formed alliance set out through the Time Gate to the location of the shadowy figure's lair. When they emerged, they found themselves in a desolate, rocky landscape. In the distance, they could see the entrance to the underground lair, a large, gaping hole in the ground that emitted a dark, foreboding glow. As they approached the lair, they were met with a group of dark creatures guarding the entrance. These creatures were larger and more menacing than the ones Aria had faced before. They had sharp, spiked armor and glowing red eyes. Aria raised her hand, signaling her allies to be ready. Remember, we fight for the multiverse. Stay together, and use our combined powers, she shouted. The battle began. Aria used the crystal to send out powerful blasts of light, which temporarily blinded the dark creatures. The king's army charged forward, their swords and shields at the ready. The villagers, though not trained warriors, threw stones and used simple weapons with determination. The forest creatures used their magic to create barriers and launch attacks from a distance. One of the dark creatures lunged at Aria. She quickly dodged and attacked with a blast of crystal-infused magic. The creature let out a roar of pain as the light magic seared its flesh. But more creatures were coming, and the battle was fierce. As they fought their way through the guards, they finally reached the entrance of the lair. Inside, it was dark and filled with a thick, smoky haze. They could hear the chanting of the shadowy figure and its allies getting louder. Aria led the way, her crystal lighting up the path. The walls of the lair were lined with strange, dark symbols that seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. As they descended deeper into the lair, they encountered more challenges. Traps were set, including pits filled with spikes and walls that would suddenly close in. But Aria and her allies were prepared. The forest creatures used their magic to detect the traps, and the king's army worked together to overcome the physical obstacles. Finally, they reached the chamber where the shadowy figure was performing the ritual. The large, dark portal was almost complete. The shadowy figure, seeing Aria and her allies, let out a scream of rage. "You will not stop me. The multiverse will be mine to rule," it shouted. Aria stepped forward. "Your reign of terror ends here. You will not be allowed to destroy the balance of the multiverse." The shadowy figure and its allies launched a barrage of dark magic at Aria and her allies. Aria quickly raised a shield of crystal-powered light magic, protecting everyone. The shield shimmered and shook under the force of the dark magic, but it held. Aria knew that they couldn't just defend. She needed to find a way to disrupt the ritual and close the portal. She looked around the chamber, trying to find a weakness. She noticed that the portal was being powered by a large, black stone in the center of the room. The stone was surrounded by a circle of dark energy. If she could destroy the stone, she might be able to stop the portal from opening. Aria turned to her allies. "I need to get to that black stone and destroy it. Cover me," The king's army charged forward, engaging the shadowy figure's allies in a fierce melee. The villagers and forest creatures used their magic to support the soldiers, sending blasts of light and nature-based magic at the enemy. Aria made her way towards the stone. The shadowy figure, realizing her plan, left the ritual and came after her. It launched a powerful blast of dark magic, but Aria was ready. She used the crystal to absorb the dark energy and then redirected it back at the shadowy figure. The shadowy figure was caught off guard. It stumbled backwards, giving Aria a chance to reach the stone. She raised the crystal high above her head and summoned all of her power. With a final, powerful blast of light, she struck the black stone. The stone shattered, and a wave of energy rippled through the chamber. The dark portal began to flicker and then slowly started to close. The shadowy figure let out a howl of despair. "No! You can't do this!" it shouted. But Aria was not done. She turned to face the shadowy figure. "It's over. Your evil plans have been foiled." The shadowy figure, in a last-ditch effort, summoned all of its remaining power and launched a final attack at Aria. Aria, along with the combined power of her allies, sent a massive blast of light magic towards the shadowy figure. The two forces collided in the middle of the chamber. For a moment, the entire lair was filled with a blinding flash of light and a deafening explosion. When the light and dust cleared, the shadowy figure was gone. Aria and her allies cheered. They had done it. They had stopped the shadowy figure and closed the portal. But they knew that they couldn't rest yet. Aria looked around at her allies. "We've won this battle, but there may be more threats out there. We need to remain vigilant and work together to protect the multiverse." The king nodded. "You have our support, Aria. We will do whatever it takes to safeguard the balance." The villagers and forest creatures echoed the king's words. They knew that the threat to the multiverse was an ongoing one, and they were committed to standing with Aria. Aria and her allies made their way out of the lair. The desolate landscape outside seemed to be bathed in a new light, as if the very world was celebrating their victory. Back in the enigmatic Library of Time, the spirit congratulated Aria and her allies. "You have achieved a great victory, Aria. But as you said, the multiverse is a vast place, and there may be other forces that seek to disrupt its balance." Aria smiled. "I'm ready. I have my allies, and I have the crystal. Together, we can face anything." Over the next few days, Aria and her allies worked on strengthening their defenses. They established a system of communication across the different realms, using the Time Gate as a means to quickly respond to any potential threats. Aria also spent time teaching others about the crystal and its power. She knew that the more people understood its importance, the better they could protect it. As the days turned into weeks, the multiverse seemed to be at peace. But Aria knew that this peace was fragile. She continued to explore the enigmatic library of time, learning more about the cosmic fabric and the ancient secrets it held. One day, while she was studying the symbols on the tree in the library, she noticed something new. A series of symbols that seemed to point to a new threat. A thread that was still in its infancy but had the potential to grow into something even more dangerous than the shadowy figure. Aria showed the symbols to the spirit. "We can't ignore this. We need to start preparing now." The spirit agreed. "You're right, Aria. But this time, we need to be even more cautious. We need to gather more knowledge and allies before we face this new threat." Aria nodded. She was ready for the challenge. The multiverse was her responsibility, and she was determined to protect it, no matter what. The battle against the shadowy figure was just the beginning. There were more adventures, more battles, and more mysteries to uncover. And Aria, along with her allies, was ready to face them all. The legacy of the crystal would continue to guide her, and she would use its power to ensure that the multiverse remained a place of balance, peace, and harmony.